What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC London. We have a massive 15-fight card here. Can't wait to break it down. We are here, as always, with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? How are you doing? Are you looking forward to a massive night of fights this weekend?
Yeah, man, it's a UK card. These are all they're usually really fun. Even the ones that don't wind up being great, they're great on paper going in there. So we got some interesting fights on this one. 15 fights, man. So we definitely got our work cut out for us tonight. But I've broken down, or I've watched tape on virtually every fighter on this card, and the ones that I haven't are the ones that I know the best. So I'm really fired up to break this one down because we're getting a certain type of card that we haven't seen in a minute, Brady. The kind of card where there aren't like 9 favorites that are juiced to the tits, like already 2 weeks out. We got a lot of close fights on this card. So the numbers are going to mean something here. We're going to find some edges in these numbers, and we're going to hopefully find ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks while these guys are fighting their asses off in London. Probably going to be an early start time for us Americans. So it's going to be a very interesting Saturday. Really looking forward to breaking down these fights with you in the chat here on Pub Sports Radio.
Let's do it. 15-fight card. I mean, it's wild. I was telling you, like, I woke up today. I slept in a little bit. Woke up and I've been taping fights all day, and I'm still not even done. I still have 3 fights left to tape, and to be honest, I couldn't get much sleep last night because every time I closed my eyes, I saw this.
Dude, we were doing the Pub Sports Radio live watch along, and when that happened live, I started laughing so loud, and I said like 2 seconds after that, I said, I can't wait to see all the memes on Twitter that are going to be made about her running away from Norma Dumont. One of the funniest moments I've seen in the cage. And let's face it, Brady, we kind of needed some comic relief after that horrible Estela Nunez injury. God help her. Hopefully she heals up quickly, because that was an absolutely nasty injury. You never want to see anything like that. So God, that was nasty, but at least we got a little bit of comic relief and some solid fights, and it looks like the Mayra Bueno Silva era is starting in the women's bantamweight division. Really looking forward to seeing what's next for her, because, dude, remember when I almost max bet her against Miesha Tate, and Tate pulled out of that fight, and I was like, oh, that was free money. Can you imagine what she would have done to Miesha Tate after that performance against Holly Holm? Great performance by Mayra Bueno Silva, but yeah, really looking forward to breaking down this UFC London card.
Yeah, luckily I didn't get to see the arm break for Nunez. I missed like 90% of the fights, but do want to do a quick recap of last night. On paper, it wasn't the best card, and like I said, I missed most of the fights, but the ones that I did watch were pretty fun. I had 2 parlays. The first one was a violence parlay with McKenny fight doesn't go, Azatar fight doesn't go, 1.5 units, and then the second parlay was McKenny fight doesn't go, parlayed with the Elder Valdez fight doesn't go, 1.5 units. That did not hit, but there were plenty of opportunities to do so. Elder hurt Valdez in every single round, dropped him a couple times, and then Valdez even hurt Elder, so that didn't happen. I had cashed the fight doesn't go to decision on the Dudakova Nunez, minus 105 for 1 unit. That hit, due to the injury for Nunez there, which is unfortunate, but I thought it was going to hit, regardless. And then I had a 1 unit shot on the Dumont Chelsea Chandler fight doesn't go to decision. I had no interest in betting this fight at all. And then I was looking on Fight Day, and then they took the fight doesn't go decision line, which was plus 165 all week. And at that point, I was like teeter-tottering in terms of betting it. And they put it to plus 200. And I'm like, I think I got to bet it now. And to be honest, I thought it was going to hit like a couple times. Like Dumont had a couple opportunities. She hurt her early. Obviously, Chelsea ran head first in the cage for some reason. And then I thought there were like opportunities in like the second and third round. So that didn't happen, but plus 200. I was upset about it last night, but I think that was a solid bet at that number. And then these hurt as well. Jack Della, KO, or not even KO. Jack Della wins in round 2, plus 470. And then Jack Della wins in round 3, plus 1,300. My goodness. I mean, almost. I mean, I just did not like Jack's fight IQ in that third round. Heard him multiple times, then started to grapple. But that plus 1,300 would have been nice. So down minus 1.05 tracked, but hit a Hail Mary 4-legger plus 626 which had the McKenny under, the Azatar under, Dudakov inside the distance at plus 150, and then Jack Della money line minus 650. That came out to plus 628. And I put a quarter unit on that. It was like a quarter unit to win like 1.5. So not the worst night in the world, not the best night in the world. I missed the fights for the most part, but I'll be ready to watch them for UFC London. And we have UFC 291 at the end of the month as well. So two very, very good cards coming up. Weezy, did you enjoy the card last night, and how'd you do?
Yeah, I got to watch the card, which was always cool, because whether you think the fights are great or not, there's going to be always the possibility for some spectacular things to happen. And I didn't break down the fights last week. We did stat diggers, but I didn't cap any of the fights, and I took the week off of doing stuff on my own YouTube channel to build a stats-driven product that I'm going to be releasing soon. So I was really fired up to build that product and take the time necessary in order to get most of that done. But I only had 2 bets on the card. One of them, I got Atman Izaitar's money line 1 unit at plus 135. So he closed at minus 110, beat a ton of line movement there. I felt like there was some value in that line. Really kind of a weird fight, like that spinning back elbow was like a wild thing that happened, and then that wound up getting Prado on top. And then the stoppage, while I didn't have a problem with the stoppage, it was the timing of the stoppage, because Francisco had just stopped throwing strikes and his Aitar had just started getting up, and then that's when Tyone kind of got in there. So, but I mean, I kind of felt like, we've never really seen Atman do shit outside of round 1 ever in his career. So, it probably would have been Prado's fight anyway, but so that bet lost. But I also had Mayra Bueno Silva by sub plus 380 half unit. So that cashed for 1.9 units for me. So up 0.9 units. And then when I was on the Pub Sports Radio live stream watching the fights, I put 1 unit untracked on Mayra Bueno Silva's money line at plus 145. So that hit too. But yeah, up 0.9 units tracked on a two bet fight, on a 2-bet card with only 1.5 units invested. So kept it really small, cashed, super happy about it. On to the next. Really a lot more excited about the prospects on this card. And I think that we're going to get a lot more bettable lines on this card. But some of these lines, Brady, they're getting steamed as we speak. So let's get into it, man. We got a lot of work to do tonight. I see Boston Nick in the chat. I see our guy Tim Troiano, who's always out there stacking cash tickets like flapjacks. That dude hit like 6 Lambeau plays yesterday. So we got a really good chat in here. Kyle Marley in the room. We got a bunch of legends already in here, along with all the usual suspects on Pub Sports Radio. Really fired up to break this one down.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I wish I was, paying more attention last night, because I probably would have bet Mayra Bueno Silva too had I saw this on Twitter. It was Holly Holm walking into the
That is a vacant stare. That is the definition of a vacant stare right there. It looks a lot like Megan Anderson when she was going to fight Amanda Nunes. It was and Mayra. Dude, I'm a fan of Mayra Bueno Silva. I talked a lot of shit about her a few fights back, man, and she has really made a fan out of me. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's next for her. Did Holly retire, Brady?
You said retirement home? What'd you say?
No, I said, did she retire?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
She's only 41, man. It's not retirement home time for Holly Holm anytime in the near future, man.
She was walking to the cage with her cane and some slippers last night. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a very bad look there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Mayra Bueno, so she's interesting. Like, she's an amazing grappler who doesn't wrestle, but she uses that pressure. She forces you to grapple, and then she submits you. I mean, she's interesting. She kind of reminds me of somebody else on this card. Like
on this, I was just gonna say, there's somebody on this card that has that exact same style. I can't wait to talk about that fight. That's a really good one.
That is going to be a good one for sure. So Weezy, you shouted out the chat a little bit. I want to shout out a few more people here. We got Sean in the chat. We got Kiwi916, only one. We got Rod. We got Tim. We got Tony with the dono. He says, made 5 units Saturday, but lost a 13-leg parlay when home got subbed in the round 2 after took fight starts round 3. Goodness. That was close.
And that was like 4.5 minutes into round 2, wasn't it?
I don't remember, but I know it was in round 2. Dang.
Oh, dude, I'll look that up right now.
Yeah. Why didn't you hedge? I mean, it probably wasn't thinking that you needed to hedge. I don't know. I guess maybe Bueno Silva could have subbed it early, but.
Oh, no, it was only 38 seconds into round 2. My bad.
Oh, you're good. I wasn't watching it. Rob says, what is up, Rob? We got Dixon Cider in the chat. We got TH. We got Londo. We got Brad. We got Donald in the chat. Rem Dog. Kyle Marley. Ryan. We got EQ. We got Sandfield Films. We got Boston Nick. What is up, Mr. D? We got Cardo, Kristen, Mike, Chuckles. What is up, everybody? Let's pick together. All right, Weezy, let's get into it. And let's start with the first fight on the card. And we have a very good fight. Jafel Filio going against Daniel Barras. We got Filio, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Barras, 34 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. We got Filio 4 years younger. Filio with a 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. So we have Filio. He was 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He got a knockout win in the 3rd round in the Contender Series, and then he lost by submission in the 3rd round against Muhammad Mukayev, but had a lot of moments in that fight, and I think his stock definitely rose in that performance. As far as Daniel Barras, he is making his debut here, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. I believe he had a decision loss on the Contender Series where he definitely had his moments. But yeah, I went and watched tape on Barras. I was very impressed with this guy. I actually like both guys here. Yeah, Barras, this guy's a dog. This guy has been submitted twice, which is something to mention, but his submission losses come a very long time ago. I think eight years ago at this point. But yeah, his striking is very good. This guy has a ton of power for the flyweight division. And I love the way he mixes it up. He hits the body very, very hard. I've seen him hurt guys to the body on multiple different occasions. So I love that. I love the striking. I love the pressure that Barras brings. This guy's super exciting. And then you got Jafal Filio, who solid striker in his own right, but he's going to probably be looking to get this fight down to the mat. I think it's all going to come down to whether or not Jafal Filio is able to take down and hold down and control Barras. If so, he maybe gets a sub or wins minutes on the mat. But if Barras is able to keep this stand and keep it upright, I think Barras can have a lot of success here on the feet. We have a very closely lined fight to kick off this card. Weezy, we have multiple pick'em fights on this card, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it is. I really enjoyed watching tape on these guys, especially that recent tape on Barras. Dude, this guy, I mean, like, he's hurting people badly. But then when you go and you look at the records of some of these guys, they're like 9-7 Spanish regional scene guys. So it's, the level of competition isn't great, but he's doing exactly what you would expect a veteran flyweight to do to that level of competition. He's not just beating them, he's beating the shit out of them. So, he's a really fun guy to watch. And with Filio, you got a guy who's definitely not going to be out of his depth in the striking at all, in my opinion. He's got excellent striking, very, very technical. He's a Novo União guy. So he's getting really good striking coaching over there. And we know what Jafel Filio is on the ground. This guy is very slick on the ground. He is a strangulation expert. And frankly, he beats anybody in the UFC not named Muhammad Mukayev, because Mukayev is young, dumb, full of cum. That's what we used to say when I was a young man, because when you're young, they say that youth is wasted on the young, because you have all this energy, your body can recuperate really quickly, from injuries and stuff like that. But you do dumb shit because you're young and you think you're invincible. I can't believe he didn't tap to that knee bar, dude. He was in that thing for how long, Brady? His knee was bent the wrong way for at least 5 or 6 seconds. I can't believe he didn't tap to that. And we still got to have to see how Mukayev comes back from that, because that was a very, very serious knee injury that he suffered in that fight. So Jafel Filio is not going to be out of his depth on the feet, and I think that he's going to have a big grappling advantage on the mat should it get there. But it's not like Jafel is the most committed wrestler in the world. But we are going to see him probably go to it at certain points in this fight. This is going to be a banger. This is going to be a great way to start off this fantastic card. And I think while it's on the feet, Farès is going to be very dangerous. And while it's in the clinch and while it's in the grappling exchanges, Filio is going to be very dangerous. They set the under at 1.5 rounds for a flyweight fight. That's how dangerous these guys, the bookies, know that these two guys are. This is a great fight, dude.
Yep. Great fight indeed. I don't have too much interest in the money line. I think a pick is about right. Like I said, I'm very high on both these guys. I think both these guys are very, very good. I was looking at potential violence here, but like you said, they ended up setting it 1.5, and the over 1.5 is -208, and the under 1.5 is +168, which is expected. I knew it was going to get juiced the over there, but I don't know. +168, I don't really love it. I would prefer maybe a 2.5, but that's probably not going to be a good price. So it might just be a stay away, but a really fun fight nonetheless to kick off the card.
Yeah, let me just look here for the under 1.5. Farès 12 of 21 times outside the UFC, and Filio 6 of 15. So really only 15 of their 36 fights on the regional scene finished under 1.5 rounds. Only 50%. So that's not a big number, but you're only paying 37.31% at a +168. So it is a interesting line to play, but in a flyweight fight, that it's hard to bet under 1.5s.
Yeah, unless it's Malcolm Gordon or Daniel Da Silva,
or Shannon Ross.
Shannon Rossi. I don't know, but hopefully we get to see Shannon Ross again. I was thinking maybe Shannon Ross versus Daniel Da Silva in the near future.
Dude, wow. Daniel Da Silva would be like -700. Because, Shannon Ross can't even take one punch at this point. So, wow, that would be a fun one. Let's make that fight, and then we could smash the under 0.5 rounds prop on DraftKings. Max bet it.
I agree. I think that it might even hit before the fight even starts. Like maybe the Vaseline guys rubbing stuff on Shannon's head, and maybe gets wobbled from that, or maybe a Bruce bump or Fence bump knocks him down. You never know.
I'm thinking Shannon Ross gets into the cage. He starts kind of like running around the cage, gets a toe caught in there, snaps his Achilles right in half, just goes down in a heap. Big win for Daniel Da Silva.
Yeah, or maybe the air conditioning's a little bit too high, and maybe that can knock him out as well. So yeah, Shannon Ross, Malcolm Gordon, Daniel Da Silva, some of my favorite fighters in the flyweight division. All right, let's keep moving on. We have Shauna Bannon going against Bruna Brazil. We got Bannon, who is 29 years old, 5'5" with a 69-inch reach. Brazil, 29 years old, 5'6" with a 65-inch reach. Same age there. Brazil with a 1-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach disadvantage. So Bannon, she has 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Obviously, she's undefeated. She got a decision in her last fight. Prior to that, a couple more decisions, some TKOs in there as well. Brazil is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She had that knockout win. I think it was a head kick on the Contender Series against Mann. And then she loses to Denise Gomes by knockout in the second round there. So, yeah, I mean, Brazil, it looked like her fight against Gomes, like that, it looked like that was the first time she's ever battled any resistance or anything at all. I mean, it just looked bad for Brazil, but Denise Gomes, she's a dog. We know that she's pretty good by now. Brazil's probably gonna have the striking. Well, she is gonna have the striking advantage here. But Bannon's gonna want to get this fight down to the mat. I think we got a striker versus grappler matchup here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I had fun watching the tape on Shauna Bannon. She's fun to watch. She has a Taekwondo base. And she's got a pretty extensive amateur career. She's something like 8-3 as an amateur or something like that. So she was known as an amateur as more of a pure striker. And then when you see her make her debut and fight on from there, you see her mixing in the ground game a lot and actually going to her wrestling, going to the ground and pound, to the submission attempts. She even got Deisa Veloso by submission in her professional debut. But the pro career is only 1 year long. A couple of fights in the UK. Or I'm sorry, her submission win was in her debut. I forget what the name of it. She has not submitted anybody. I was looking at Bruna Brazil. Shauna Bannon only has 2 knockouts as a professional, but Shauna's definitely mixing in the grappling, and she might want to do that against Bruna because even though Shauna has that Taekwondo base and she's got really good kicks, they come up to the face quickly, and she'll use those side kicks, those traditional martial arts techniques. Kind of be bouncing up and down on her toes, kick the legs, kick the body, kick the head. She's got good kicks with both legs, but Bruna is really good with her kickboxing. She's a Brazilian national kickboxing champion, and I think when you watch them on tape, Bruna's a lot more experienced because not only has she been on a pro for 7 years longer than Shauna. She's got 7 more professional fights, about 70 more minutes in the pro cage. Bruna just looks a lot more technical on the feet than Shauna does. Shauna will be throwing a lot of kicks, but I think Bruna will be dangerous with all of her weapons. And Bruna's kicks are just as good, if not better, than Shauna's. I just don't know if the wrestling will translate, though, because if the wrestling does translate for Shauna Bannon, she might be able to find ways to win minutes in this fight if she doesn't like how it's going on the feet. But we can't forget, this is in London, Brady. So there are going to be home fighters and there are going to be away fighters. And you have to be cognizant of where the away fighters are coming from. Brazil to the United Kingdom, that's a long-ass flight, man. So, to lay the juice on Bruna Brazil could be a little bit dangerous here, but I do think she's the better technical striker. But I think Shauna Bannon might be the more likely fighter here to win minutes in the grappling exchanges. And she's going to be the hometown fighter. She's going to have the crowd behind her. But it will be her debut too. So there's a possibility of there being some nerves, an adrenaline dump, or just, a flat out, just kind of a dud performance like we see in some fighters' debuts here. But, these ladies are about the same age. They both have that good kickboxing skill set. But Bruna Brazil's got the experience edge and the strength schedule edge. So I think I'll lean Bruna Brazil in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't bet on fights like these anymore. I did last night and it didn't really work out. But Brazil now -135, Bannon plus 115. I don't have much interest in this one. If anything, for me, it's probably a dog or pass. But I don't really know too much about Bannon yet, but I think she could potentially mix in takedowns here, but nothing I'm too passionate on. So it's going to be a pass fight for me, and I think we can move on to Chris Duncan going against Yanal Ashmos. We got Chris Duncan, 30 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach. Ashmos, 28 years old, 5'9", with a 68-inch reach. We get Ashmos 2 years younger. It's going to be Chris Duncan with a 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Duncan is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He fought Borshev on the Contender Series, lost that fight by second-round knockout, and then he knocked out Charlie Campbell a second time on the Contender Series, and then he goes out there and wins the decision against Omar Morales. As far as Ashmos, he comes in against Sam Patterson, pretty big dog, and knocks him out in the first round. Very brutal knockout win there for Ashmos. I think we got, another really close. These are first couple fights on this card. Very, very closely lined fights. Looks like Chris Duncan around -120, and then Ashmos around +100, +105. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is a fun fight. I'm not exactly sure what to think of Ashmos yet because in that Patterson fight, I mean, I kind of feel like the statistics are a little bit deceiving there because Ashmos was absolutely getting pieced up at range. Everything that Patterson was throwing seemed to be touching him, but the statisticians didn't seem to agree with that, as they only have Yanal absorbing 2 significant strikes in that fight. So I'm not sure what happened there with the statisticians, but I liked what Patterson was doing. But the first time Patterson got too close, Ashmos threw a huge overhand. It landed, and that was it. I mean, he got on top of him and pounded him out. Really good performance, really clean performance, but he landed one big shot and the fight was over. So like you look there, Yanal Ashmos landed 2 strikes on the feet, but 15 significant strikes. So 13 of the strikes came after the knockdown that he got. So, but But I like Ashmo's on top, man. When that dude gets on top, he's nasty with his ground and pound, and he's able to win minutes there, keep the position. But Chris Duncan's a lot more. He's a lot more experienced. He's got 4 more professional fights. Even though Ashmo's has been a pro for a year longer, it's Duncan who's been a lot more active. Duncan's going to be the bigger dude here, as Ashmo's is kind of a small featherweight. And Duncan's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here. 7 wins by knockout. And we know that Duncan's a pretty durable dude as well, as he's been in some wars, back and forth wars. And I like Chris Duncan's striking better than I like Yanal Ashmos's. And Duncan does a good job of mixing in that wrestling, which I think is going to be important. I'm going to lean Duncan here. But I think Ashmos is a prospect to keep your eye on. He trains out of K Warrior Tribe Dojo, which is where Azamat Mirzakhanov trains. It's an East Coast gym, so he'll be going from the East Coast to London, which isn't nearly as bad of a flight if you're like coming from a place like, say, Vegas or California, or even worse, Hawaii. But either way, I'm leaning Duncan in this spot. I think he's a little bit better, and especially in the minute winning, than Ashmos is. Oh, you're muted.
My bad. I was just going to say, I feel like Duncan does have some paths to win minutes with potential takedowns. But I was watching tape on Duncan, and I came across this, and I was getting some Jimmy Croup vibes of this striking defense.
Yeah.
Guess what happened? Guess what happened a split second later?
Which fight was that?
The Borshev fight.
Yeah, okay. Then I think we all know what happened. He got absolutely dropped.
Yeah, so that's a concern. Like on paper, his striking defense is 41%. He's super tough, but this Ashmos guy looks like he has some power. It's another close fight. I mean, these first 3 fights, all very close, could probably go either way. I do agree with some people in the chat that Ashmos is getting, a little bit overrated here for that knockout win against Patterson, who is pretty chinny, but I think he looks decent. So yeah, pretty close fight. Duncan -130, Ashmos +110. Any thoughts? On the I was gonna say like the under, but it's juiced to like -165. I don't like that really at all. I know Ashmos starched Patterson, but Patterson's chinny. Duncan's not.
Yeah, Duncan is a tough dude. He's a scrapper, obviously. Gonna be a fun fight. But yeah, the under is pretty juiced here. But we're just kind of missing a little bit of information because both of these guys are stud finishers. Ashmos, 6 of his 7 wins. Duncan, 8 of 10. So it's 14 of these guys, 17 wins, finishing inside the distance, over 80% of them. And they've only got 1 combined loss between the 2 of them, though. So it's kind of hard to know how durable they're going to be. And Chris Duncan got knocked out by a guy in Borshev who's an absolute sniper on the feet. And while Ashmos has got a lot of power, Ashmos' kickboxing is nowhere near Vyacheslav Borshev's. So fun fight as well in a card that's full of it.
Yep, another very, very solid fight. Let's keep moving on to the next fight. We have Ketlin Vieira going against Pannie Kianzad. We have Vieira, 31 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. We got Kianzad, 31 years old, 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. Same age there. Vieira, 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Ketlin Vieira, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision win against Eubanks, decision loss against Kunsakaya, decision win against Tate, decision win against Holm, and then a decision loss against Pennington. As far as Kianzad, she has 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She had a decision win against Betch Correa, Eubanks, Davis, a decision loss to Pennington, and then a decision win against Lena Landsberg. Who'd you say that Vieira looks like, Weezy?
Lorenzo Lamas, back when he was doing the show Renegade, which is where he was like a motorcycle guy who was kind of like, there would be problems starting somewhere, and then Renegade would roll in there, and that'd be the end of the problems.
Like
yes, yes, exactly. I think they're dead ringers for each other, especially the hair.
My goodness, yeah. I mean, they look exactly the same.
Yes, yeah.
So, what do you think of this fight, Weezy?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be as classic as the television franchise Renegade starring Lorenzo Lamas, which is just iconic television. If you're an American and you haven't watched Renegade yet, please turn off Stat Diggers right now and do yourself a favor and go watch Lorenzo Lamas at his absolute best. But as far as this fight goes, very interesting because Ketlen Vieira is a pretty big favorite here. But when you look at the stats, right, Ketlen at range, at distance, lands 4.5 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 5.3 for a negative 0.83 distance striking differential, while Pani, who's a really good kickboxer in her own right, lands 7.19 distance strikes per minute, absorbs 5.5, a positive 1.7 distance striking differential, 45% accuracy at distance for Kianzad, 35% for Ketlen, and they've both got 57% striking defense, and they both spend between 55 and 60% of their time at distance. Where I think Ketlen's going to be better is with the minute winning in the grappling exchanges, Brady. Ketlen wins 61% of the control time positions that she's in, while for Pani, she's only winning 36%. But Panny's got pretty good takedown defense. 80% takedown defense over 25 attempts against. So she's been difficult to take down, but she is, being controlled over 25% of her UFC cage time, which is over 112 minutes. So when you can get Panties back against the cage, when you can get her back against the mat, you can win minutes there against her. And we've seen Ketlen be able to do that, particularly in the Yana Kunitskaya fight. We really saw her pile up a lot of control time with her wrestling and grappling. But if Pani keeps this standing, I think that she's definitely not going to be out of her depth on the feet. And when you look at those strength of schedule stats, right, they're very similar here. I think that the thought is that because Ketlen Vieira's had a couple of 5-round main events, that she's fighting the better brand of competition, but it's not necessarily the case when you look at their resumes side by side. So I think that this fight's a lot closer than what the line says that it is, but I'm still gonna lean Vieira here because I do think that Kianzad's the better striker at distance, but I think Vieira is very close to her level there. While I think if it does go to the ground, that Ketlen will be much more likely to win minutes.
Who do you think is better at riding a motorcycle between the two?
Oh, I mean, I would have to go with Ketlen Vieira. I would just have to say that right off the bat, and with no evidence whatsoever to suggest that. But I'm going with Ketlen. You can't look that much like Lorenzo Lamas and not have some kind of motorcycle skills ingrained in your genetics. It's just not possible.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're getting Vieira at minus 162, it looks like, and Kianzad plus 142. The over is probably just juiced out of this world. Yeah, minus 300 to the over. Wait, makes sense.
Yeah, let's see. We've got 7 UFC wins for Vieira. 1 of them is a finish. We got 5 UFC wins for Kianzad. 0 of them finishes. So 12 combined UFC wins, and 1 of them was a finish. Yeah, the over is probably a pretty good look here. But, it's women's MMA. They surprise us all the time.
All the time, indeed. All right, so let's keep moving on. We have another fun fight here. We got Makhmud Muradov going against Brian Barberena. We got Muradov, 33 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Barberena, 34 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. We got Muradov 1 year younger. Muradov with a 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Muradov is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Alessio Di Chirico. Knockout win against Trevor Smith and Andrew Sanchez. A submission loss to Gerald Mearshart, and then a decision loss to Kyle Bahayo. As far as Brian Barberena, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Darian Weeks, Matt Brown. A knockout win against Robbie Lawler. A submission loss to Rafael dos Anjos and Gunnar Nelson. So yeah, Barberena is coming up a weight class here late in his career for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but he's going to be undersized here with that 2-inch height disadvantage and 3-inch reach disadvantage. Seems like a pretty solid matchup for Muradov. We don't have a ton of big favorites on this card, but Muradov I think is like the second or third biggest favorite this week. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, why is Brian Barberena moving up to middleweight? I would love to get some kind of an answer on that because he does not look like he cuts a lot of weight to make 170. And we know that he's had some health problems, Brady. They told him after a surgery like 3 fights ago that he might not fight again. And here he still is. He had serious back surgery. And he's, performing at a pretty high level. Good win over Robbie Lawler. Back and forth war with a veteran in Matt Brown. And then he loses to Rafael Dos Anjos and Gunnar Nelson. No shame in that. And those are horrible matchups for him. Look, Brian Barberena, look at the stats, you guys, in the grappling there. He's been taken down 46 times in 17 fights on 101 attempts. So he's got less than 55% takedown defense. He gets controlled 28.5% of his UFC cage time, and he allows 3.48 takedowns per 15 minutes. So Brian Barberena has gotten 2 takedowns in the UFC and allowed 46. So if you're going up against guys like Rafael Dos Anjos, Gunnar Nelson, those are brutal matchups. Now, this is different. This is Makhmud Muradov. Muradov's a great striker. Now, he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist, but when you look at his finish rate, 16 knockouts for Makhmud Muradov, but only 3 submissions. So obviously the guy is somebody that's, going to be doing his best work on the feet. And when you look at how he loses, 4 losses by submission, 1 loss by knockout. So he's definitely a guy that's a little more vulnerable to the submission. So we've seen Barberena vulnerable to grapplers, and we've seen Muradov vulnerable to grapplers, but both of these guys are strikers. But here's the problem, is that Barberena is not big enough to be a welterweight. What the hell is he moving up against Muradov? Muradov's huge. He's got a really long frame. He's listed at 6'2". I wouldn't be surprised if he was a little bit taller than that. 75-inch reach. This is an orthodox versus southpaw matchup. Both of these guys' power weapons are going to be open for business. And Muradov, he chucks that overhand right like he's Nolan Ryan throwing a fastball. You get hit with that thing, and it is lights out. If you watch on the regional scene from Muradov, I think it was the Alberto Uda fight. He just absolutely melted him with that. And it was also there was a Spanish guy that he fought, the shorter dude, and he absolutely melted him too. Muradov is very dangerous on the feet. And you look at the numbers, it backs it up. He throws a lot more volume than his opponents do. He's got a positive 1.93 significant striking differential. He's got 62% defense. And Barberena's got good pressure and good volume as well. 15.67 distance strike attempts per minute. He's landing 6.9, which is like 2.8 more than the average for the division. But he also absorbs 6 significant strikes and has less than 50% striking defense. Muradov's going to be the much better range manager here. Muradov has got much better footwork. He's the younger guy. He's the more experienced guy overall. And I think that he's the much more likely guy to win minutes on the ground here. Yeah, I mean, I think Barberena is a really fun fighter to watch. And I think his pressure and his volume, they're going to cause problems for a lot of fighters. But Muradov's already really good at maintaining distance, and he's got fantastic footwork and lateral movement. I think he's going to make this look really easy. I think he's going to pick apart Barberena and probably finish him in the second or third round here. I think that there's levels right now, and I just have no idea why Barberena is moving up a weight class. To me, just the fact that he wants to fight at 185 is a massive red flag to me.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on with that, because it doesn't make no sense. But yeah, like I said, Muradov is a big favorite, currently minus 270, which, yeah, that makes him the second biggest favorite on the card. Barberena plus 230 there. They set the over under at 1.5 rounds, which I don't love. I think it probably does go over 1.5. Barberena is super tough. But then again, he did get dropped by Jason Witt. So yeah, I like Muradov as well, but I don't know if I like the minus 270 there. We got the money liner with the $10 dono. I feel like having a good week. I start with Stat Diggers. Appreciate you, money liner, for hanging out with us here on a Sunday, and thank you for the $10 dono. Weezy, any thoughts on any props potentially, or the money line or anything?
Yeah, let me look at that over 1.5 on my prop template real quick here. So it's at minus 175, and it's almost a trifecta bet on my prop template because 62.5% of middleweight fights go over 1.5 rounds, and we're paying 63.5%. So we're overpaying by about 1% when we compare the price of the line to the benchmark. But here's the thing. Muradov has went over 1.5 rounds in the UFC 4 of 5 times. And for Barberena, it's 14 of 17.
Goodness.
So you combine those numbers, it's 18 of 22, or 81.8% of these guys' combined fights have went over 1.5 rounds. But those are welterweight fights for Barberena. Now he's coming up and fighting a much bigger, much more powerful striker here in Mahmoud Muradov. So I mean, it's interesting, but minus 175 is a pretty cheap line when you consider the over 1.5 rates of both fighters being almost 82% in a 22-fight UFC sample size.
Yep, I think the over makes a ton of sense. I don't know if I'll get to it, but I think it does go over pretty easily there. All right, we'll move on to an interesting fight. We have Mick Parkin going against Jamal Pogues. We got Parkin, 27 years old, 6'4", with a 79-inch reach. Jamal Pogues, 27 years old, 6'3", with a 77-inch reach. Same age there. Parkin, 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Parkin, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Obviously, he's undefeated, 6-0. And then Jamal Pogues is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Had a decision win on the Contender Series, and then made his debut against Josh Parisian and won that fight by decision. This is like the weirdest fight on the card for me, borderline like 100 gambler. That's because I just don't know what to do with Mick Parkin. I don't know really what to think of him. He trains with Tom Aspinall. So he was training with like Paul Craig as well. He's only 27 years old, which is extremely young at heavyweight. He's probably the more natural heavyweight, whereas Jamal Pogues is a guy that's fought at light heavyweight for the majority of his career. And when you look at Parkin, I mean, he looks good. It looks like he has some skills in terms of, some wrestling, some power. And then you just look at who he's like fighting, and it's like really, really poor competition. Like I even sent you the video, Weezy. I forget who he beat, but he went out in there and fought some guy that I think it was this guy, right? Was it Simon?
No, it was Tomas Vallecas.
Oh my God.
And Tomas went into that fight with a record of 1-10. And I know it looks like he's bad, but he just caught some bad luck, I think. I think he could have easily been, 3-8. But yeah, 1-10. It was the worst fight that I've ever seen. If you guys want to laugh your ass off, I promise you, it'll only take 18 seconds. You can watch one of the best quit jobs. It was like the fight was fixed, but that nobody told Parkin it was fixed. Because he went out there and he hit him with an elbow that didn't land, and the dude just crumbled. He crumbled and covered up, and the ref was like Parkin got on top of him, and the ref was like, no. That guy crumbled, and he didn't even get hit. He doesn't want to be here. And he just stopped the fight without Parkin landing anything else, really. It was hilarious.
What was his name? Thomas?
Vaikikas. I mean, can I buy a consonant for the love of God?
I looked it up, and there's 2 different pictures. Like, which one is he? Is he this guy or is he this guy? Like, or maybe it's the same person.
Oh my God.
Which one?
It's definitely not the yoked. No, it's definitely that dude with the green shirt. That's him. Okay. Yeah, that's him, and he is 1-12 now. The Fighting Pride of Lithuania.
I wish there were more pictures of him. So that's him apparently. But yeah, I mean, it was like the first thing that that Parkin threw. He like he just like fell on the ground. It was like flopped over. It was hilarious. But yeah, I don't know what to think of this guy, man. I mean, is Parkin the real deal, or does he look good because just fighting bums? He has great training partners, so I don't know what to think of this fight. He's kind of a weird one that I just don't want a ton to do with. And another close line as well, a line that's actually came down a lot throughout the week. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so Parkin, when you watch the tape on him, it all looks pretty good. The boxing looks pretty solid. He's strong. He's got a big frame for the heavyweight division. But the wins are over a 1-10 Tomas Vallecas, a 2-17 Jan Lisak, a 2-3 Sisman Stankowitz or Sisnikowicz, a 7-7 Ashley Pollard, and a 6-9 Fatih Aktas, and then Eduardo Neves on the Contender Series gassed out after. What was it? Like, dude, they were 90 seconds into the fight, and DC starts laughing out loud. He goes, "This guy's got nothing left." It was such a bad performance. Like, Neves pulled a Bob Sapp and was like, "I will give you 60 seconds of trying to knock this dude out, and if it goes tits up from there, I am quitting." So we know nothing about Mick Parkin, how he's going to look at this level. But in my opinion, we know a lot about Jamal Pogues, right? Jamal's got good boxing. Jamal's got good wrestling. Jamal's got a chin on him too. And Jamal's pretty fucking athletic too. He can move. He's fast for a heavyweight. And frankly, I do really like his boxing. He's not a knockout guy, but he will touch you with that jab. And when you're getting jabbed up by a heavyweight, eventually your face is going to be a complete mess. So I do like Jamal Pogues quite a bit in this spot. And it's a show me spot for Mick Parkin because he's fought nobody. And Pogues is going to give him 15 minutes of good conditioning, good boxing. And if Pogues doesn't like how it's going on the feet, he's going to wrestle. And we're going to find out what Parkin's wrestling defense looks like because it hasn't been tested by somebody that's not a tomato can yet. So, yeah, this is Pogues for me, but like I say, I can't be too confident because like this guy Parkin could be incredible. We just don't know it yet. I mean, he's shaving these guys' asses, Brady. 1 minute 57 seconds against Neves. 1 minute 43 seconds into round 2 against Fatih Aktas. Round 2 knockout against Ashley Pollard. 3 minutes against Stankowitz. 2 minutes against Lisak. 18 seconds in an absolute war against Tomas Vallecas. So we don't know much about Parkin, but we know a lot about Pogues. And Pogues was around minus 220 about a week and a half ago. And now he could be had for about minus 140. I think this will be the first time Jamal is leaving the country to fight. So that's a big deal. Fighting outside of his home country in front of a very hostile crowd. Mick Parkin is the hometown guy. He's going to be the crowd is absolutely going to be behind him, but he's making his debut. This is a huge step up in terms of the level of competition that he's fought, and I like Pogues to win here.
Yeah, it's an unbettable fight for me. Just way too many unknowns. Like I watched all the tape on Parkin, but I feel like I learned just nothing about him. I think he could either be like really good or really bad, and I think somebody might know something. I mean, this line's closing up pretty quickly, so maybe he is the real deal. But I don't know. I don't know. I think we're going to find out if he is or not after fighting Pogues this Saturday. So we'll see. It's a fighter I'm going to sit back and watch, take notes on Parkin. Because beating some of these guys it tells me just nothing. He looks good doing it, but it tells me nothing.
And we Brady and I have to really remind you how hilarious that debut for Mick Parkin is. Go watch that supposed knockout and have yourself a really good laugh. If you're having a bad day, that'll cheer you up.
Yeah, I wish I could show it on the show, but unfortunately not allowed. But It was funny. It was funny from the very jump.
I
All
would
right.
have given Mick Parkins so much better of a fight than that, man. I mean, come on.
I think most would. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We have Marc Diakiese going against Joe Álvarez. We got Diakiese, 30 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Álvarez, 30 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. We got same age there. Álvarez with a 5-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Diakiese 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss to Fiziev. Submission loss to Alves, decision win against Borshev and Hadzovic, and then a decision loss against Michael Johnson. As far as Alvarez, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a TKO against Beluardo, a submission against Duffy, submission against Yokolev, submission against Moises, and then a knockout loss against Sarukian. So I've always thought Alvarez was kind of like a fraud. Like, I was never high on the guy, but I guess it was that the Moises win that really just completely changed my mind on Alvarez, because he's a guy that, like we talked about Bueno Silva earlier, he's a phenomenal grappler. This guy's grappling's incredible, but he doesn't shoot takedowns ever. He's actually attempted 0 takedowns, never attempted a takedown. So he has this great ground game, but he's not taking guys down to the mat. What he does, though, is he's going to throw a ton at you, and he's going to throw with 110% power, and he's going to hit you so hard that he forces you to grapple, like we saw in the Duffy fight, the Yakula fight, and then he's going to submit you. So this guy, I don't know, there's something about Alvarez. I wasn't too high on him, but I'm starting to come around a little bit. I think his striking's just looked much, much improved over the years. And like I said, this guy hits very, very hard. What he did to Thiago Moises was very impressive to me, because I think Thiago Moises is a solid fighter. He went out there and starched Moises, hurt him on multiple occasions, and just got him out of there in the first round. I'm curious to see how Marc Diakiese is going to attack this fight, because Marc Diakiese has been wrestling lately and wrestling a ton. This guy's attempted 80 takedowns in the UFC. He's not going to do that here. He's not going to shoot any. He's not going to want to shoot any takedowns here. If he does, he's probably getting subbed. He's been subbed twice in the UFC. Once by Alves after getting hurt in the knee, and then once against Dan Hooker back in the day. So he's been subbed twice. He's been hurt a couple times. I like Alvarez here. It's just I don't really know if I want to lay chalk on a guy who is not going to wrestle, is not probably not going to win minutes on the feet in terms of the striking. But I feel like he has a ton of power in his hands and his kicks, and I feel like if this fight does hit the mat, it's his world. So I like Alvarez here. Don't know if I'll lay the favorite price tag on him, though. Weezy, how do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, I like Alvarez too here. The guy is really good. His striking is very underrated, in my opinion. Great kicks. I mean, he really goes after you with the kicks, low leg kicks, kicks to the body, teep kicks, head kicks. He's very aggressive with it. And, I mean, he's got 0% takedown defense on 6 attempts against. So, if Marc Diakiese feels like, hey, you know what, my submission defense is solid, and I want to take this guy down and control him for 15 minutes, he'll absolutely be able to do that. But he will have to avoid those submissions. And Alvarez is averaging 1.19 submission attempts per 15 minutes. And he has 3 wins by submission in the UFC. And the other win was a knockout win, which was by ground and pound after he had swept Danilo Beluardo. So he's just very dangerous. If you try to take him down, he's immediately going for that guillotine. And then once he does take you down, he's going to try to get his guard back. And if he gets his guard back, you're going to start throwing up that triangle. And he's got all these submissions off of his back. So he's very aggressive with his submissions. And when you're like that, it allows you to be very aggressive on the feet with your kicks. And that's exactly what he does. He throws caution to the wind, doesn't have good distance striking defense at only 54%, but he doesn't care. He's looking to make you panic, grapple, and snatch up a submission when you do that. And Diakiese is going to be vulnerable to that. We saw him get guillotined by Alves. He's been submitted twice in his pro career, in his 6 pro losses. But Joel Alvarez has never really won a decision, while Diakiese is 9-4 in decisions in his career and 5-4 in decisions in the UFC. So it's a very interesting fight. the data on my prop template really likes the over 1.5 rounds here. I'm sorry, I think it's an over 2.5 rounds, actually. Let me get the number for that.
Yeah, it's 2.5.
Yeah, over 2.5 at plus 150 is almost a trifecta bet on my template. 52.6% of these guys' fights have went over 2.5 rounds in a 19-fight sample size, and you're only paying 40% at plus 150. So it's an underpriced line according to my prop template, but you really have to worry about Álvarez snatching up a submission or even getting a knockout on the feet. But I just don't see him knocking out Diakiese. If Fizayev's not knocking him out, if Borshev isn't knocking him out, I don't know how Álvarez does that, because Álvarez hasn't even landed a knockdown in the UFC yet. But it's an interesting fight. I just think Álvarez actually has more ways to win, because I think Álvarez can actually win the minutes and the striking exchanges on the feet potentially, because he is so active with his kicks. But Diakiese is no joke on the feet, and we know that he can absolutely win minutes with the wrestling. But doing it against guys like Borshev and Hadzovic, who have some of the worst takedown defense in any division in the UFC, is not really that impressive. So we're going to have to see. Diakiese's fought the better brand of competition, in my opinion, overall, because he's fought the more experienced guys. Being in there with guys like Fizayev, Alves, Michael Johnson isn't the same as Álvarez against Danilo Belluardo, Joseph Duffy, Yakovlev. But, he's also fought Sarukian, Moises, and Demiris Magulov as well. So he's kind of fought 3 really good guys and then 3 really low-level guys. So it's going to be interesting, because Diakiese is kind of in the middle there. He's not as good as Sarukian, Moises, or Ismagulov, but he's better than Belluardo, Duffy, and Yakovlev. So we're going to find out a lot in this fight. It's a fascinating stylistic matchup. Will Marc Diakiese wrestle is the question.
That'd be very interesting. I actually like the under, but more specifically, like the under 1.5 rounds, probably at plus money. Just due to the fact that Álvarez has only been over 1.5 rounds only twice. I mean, he's 20 times this guy's fights have finished under 1.5. So I feel like if he's getting his way, probably lands a big shot, club and sub situation there. And then Álvarez has only been to decision once, and that was against Damir Ismagulov. So I like violence here, not minus 180, but I'll kind of see where that 1.5 opens up at. I did want to address this here. Not that. Knuckles, it's really hard to give conviction in this. Like, what the hell do you want me to say? Mick Part and Jamal Pogues, like, how am I supposed to be convicted in this, right? How am I supposed to have conviction on Ketlin Vieira, Panic Yanzad? I'm trying my best, but it's hard to be convicted on some of those fights, Weezy.
Yeah, I'm convicted in certain ways. Like, Ketlin Vieira is way more handsome than Panic Yanzad. You want conviction? I'll give you conviction. Ketlin Vieira looks like Lorenzo Lamas in Renegade. I'm 100% sure of that. And if you have a different opinion, you're not going to talk me off of it. I've made up my mind. My foot's been put down, and that's it.
Exactly. Álvarez finish only. I agree, but it's going to be like minus 400.
Yeah, they're going to. The bookies are going to be onto us with that one, Mark. But I agree 100%. Definitely a finish only prop there for Álvarez would be a great look.
Yeah, I mean, a guy with 100% finish rate. All right, let's move on to the next fight.
Here we go, baby. The people's main event.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I mean, this is your main event. I mean, we have the biggest Jonny Parsons hater on the planet. Your Uncle Weezy. This guy hates Jonny Parsons, man. It's crazy. Going against Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. What a fight. This is such a hilarious fight. It's the lowest level fight on the card, on a card where we have Jamal Pogues and Mick Parton. But we got Danny Roberts. He's 35 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. Jonny Parsons, 31 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. Parsons 4 years younger. Parsons going to be at a 4-inch height disadvantage and a 5-inch reach disadvantage. Danny Roberts is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout loss against Michel Pereira, a knockout win against Salim Imadaev, a decision win against Ramazan Ameev, a decision loss to Francisco Trinaldo, and a knockout loss to Jack Della Maddalena. As far as Jonny Parsons, he won a split decision on the Contender Series. So yeah, this fight is pretty hilarious here. So I think Danny Roberts is better than Jonny Parsons in every single aspect of MMA, whether it be striking, wrestling, grappling, level of competition, experience, height, reach, you name it. Anything you can think of, I think Danny Roberts is better than Jonny Parsons outside of one attribute here, and that attribute is going to be durability. Jonny Parsons, this guy has been knocked out a couple times, but he is durable, whereas Danny Roberts, this guy has 5 finished losses in the UFC. And the one loss that was not a finish was against Francisco Trinaldo, where he was just like doing the stanky leg, wobbling across the cage for a full 15 minutes. Danny Roberts, this guy has just no durability whatsoever. And I think Jonny Parsons is probably going to knock him out here. So I think Danny Roberts, although the more skilled fighter, if you can't take a punch, you can't take a punch. So I think that Parsons knocks out Roberts at some point, but laying any money on a guy like Jonny Parsons, who probably isn't UFC caliber and not something I really want to do. It's about a pick 'em here, which seems about right because I think Danny Roberts is the more skilled fighter, but I think Parsons probably finishes them. I think the under's decent as well, just because Roberts gets finished by a gust of wind at this point. So Weezy, what are your thoughts on this and your thoughts on Jonny Parsons? It's Jonny Parsons fight week.
Yeah, it's Jonny Parsons fight week, and we finally get to see him because the Solomon Renfro fight was an eternity ago. And if you remember, like the UFC likes Jonny Parsons for some reason because they gave him a contract after basically losing on the Contender Series to Solomon Renfro. That decision was an absolute joke. Renfro 10-8'd him in the first round, beat him in the second round, and then Parsons probably outlasted him in the third. But for some reason, the judges gave it to Parsons in a split decision, which was total trash. And then Dana White gave him a contract for losing the fight. So it's weird. You look at the dude's record, he's 7-3, but he should be 6-4. And here he is in the UFC, a 5'9" welterweight with a 69-inch reach. This guy could make featherweight. I promise you, he could probably make featherweight. His haircut is an absolute disgrace. Okay? That's another thing, too. And then I watched the tape on Roberts. He's awful. My God, he's just awful. So he's 36 years old at this point, so he's getting up there. He's towards the end of his career. He's a lot, but look, he's 4 or 5 inches taller on paper than Parsons. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage. He's the southpaw in the southpaw versus orthodox matchup. He's got 15 more professional fights. He's got 125 more minutes in the pro cage. He's got 13 more UFC fights. 117 more minutes in the UFC cage. He's fought the much, much better brand of competition over his career. And he'll be the better grappler here, but, I mean, he's not much of a grappler. He's 2 for 19 on his takedown attempts, which is absolutely terrible. But Jonny Parsons is a very dangerous kickboxer. That dude has got really good Muay Thai. He checks kicks. He's got power when he throws. He throws with purpose. He's looking to knock you out. He can put combinations together. He can walk through what you're offering and get inside and hurt you. And he's pretty defensively sound, too. I mean, he's not horrible defensively. So, I mean, Parsons can really strike. He's the Muay Thai coach over at Syndicate MMA, if I'm not mistaken. But Parsons got hurt. He was supposed to fight Michael Gilmore. They gave him the easiest fight that you could possibly get in the UFC at 170 pounds. And he had to pull out of that fight with an injury. So I thought maybe he had lost a limb or was having open heart surgery because you don't pull out of a Michael Gilmore fight in the UFC. They're giving you the easiest one on the roster. So I don't know what Parsons' health situation looks like. This guy hasn't fought in a couple years at this point. He's going to be making his UFC debut, flying from Las Vegas to London to fight the much more experienced guy, a real welterweight with real welterweight size. A very experienced guy who's fought guys with a 55-47 combined record in the UFC. He's been in there with Michel Pereira, Francisco Trinaldo, Jack Della Maddalena. I mean, like the list just goes on and on and on. Roberts basically has the advantage everywhere. He should find a way to win this fight, but I'm not even really thinking about laying minus 110 on him. That's how bad I think Danny Roberts is. And I think Parsons is absolutely horrible. So I can't get to a bet on this fight. I thought I was going to be max betting Danny Roberts. Then I watched the tape, and I'm like, you just don't max bet a fighter that's not good.
No, I mean, he's the welterweight Shannon Ross. He's he gets hurt so many times.
Yeah, dude, and I mean, like that split decision against Ameev, I don't even think he won that fight. I mean, he should be 1-4 in his last 5, and Ziam Imadaev is god awful. That's his win.
Yeah, it's
but then again, it's Ziam Imadaev could probably beat Parsons, so who knows, man? I'm staying away. I don't want to lose money on this fight. I'll be so pissed off if I do.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, the under 2.5 was minus 105 for a while, but it just moved. It just moved to minus 130. Not too much interest there. And it looks like DraftKings, by the way, have totals out, which is not like DraftKings to be this early as of late. So shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook being on top of things and getting out some totals. They have it at minus 115. Marcel saying don't max bet Danny Weezy.
Yeah, don't worry, Marcel. I'm not doing it. I just thought Parsons was that bad. But I always say, Brady, and you say it too, we bet on fighters, not against them. Just because somebody's really, really awful, you shouldn't necessarily just max bet the other guy, because that guy's still got to win the fight, and if you put that kind of money on a fighter that's just not very good, you're going to have bad long-term results. You're going to have a bad time, Brady, and I am not doing it. I am not max betting Roberts. I might throw him in the greasy four-legger this week. Maybe. But, it's greasy for a reason, Brady, I mean, look, the first word is greasy. If I go out there and I give a bunch of minus 400s, I lose all credibility, and you guys would be right to be throwing rotten tomatoes at me.
My concern about Danny Roberts potentially betting him, I feel like he could get finished at the face-offs where where they try to separate them and they put their hands in between. I'm worried if he touches him a little bit too hard trying to break him up, I feel like he might stop the fight early on, a day early.
God. Yeah, this should be a fun fight, man. But God, these guys are not great.
No. Somebody in the chat asked who has a worse haircut, Johnny Parsons or Carl Deaton, and I think it's Carl Deaton. Maybe a hot take, but I think Parsons kinda pulls it off, whereas Carl Deaton, I'm just not sure what's going on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there either. I mean, Parsons, he's probably doing it to be funny, and I mean, as far as mullets go, it's a good mullet, but a mullet is a bad life choice in general. It's not, if you were a father, Brady, and your kid came home with a mullet, you'd probably be heartbroken.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too happy about it.
So yeah, it's a bad life choice, and it's on purpose. He's an adult. Nobody made him get that haircut.
Yeah. So I was just stalking Parsons' Instagram. There he is. Look at him.
Yeah,
there he is. I don't know what he's saying, but I don't know.
The beard looks really good, dude.
Yeah, he got it all shaped up, ready to go. So I think he's ready, man.
Beard looks good. Yeah, this would be a good fight for him, man. Because Roberts isn't great, and Parsons is a fun striker to watch. So yeah, it should be a good fight for the fans for sure.
Yep, I think it will be as well. All right, let's move on. Before we do, though, we have over 200 of you in here, which is awesome. We appreciate you all hanging out. If you guys have not already, smash the like button. Let's try to get those likes over 100. That'd be nice by the time we get out of here. But we're going to move on to the next fight. We have what should be an absolute banger. We have Davey Grant going against Daniel Marcos. We have Davey Grant, who is 37 years old, 5'8", with a 69-inch reach. Daniel Marcos, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach. We have Marcos, 7 years younger. Grant with a 1-inch height advantage, same reach there. Davey Grant is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Jonathan Martinez. Decision loss against Marlon Vera. decision loss against Adrian Yanez, and a very close fight. Could have went either way. A knockout win against Luis Smolka, and then a submission win against Rafael Assunção. As far as Daniel Marcos, made his debut against Simon Oliveira, won that fight by knockout. So, yeah, I picked Marcos in his debut against Simon Oliveira. I thought it was a decent matchup for him, but to be honest, I wasn't expecting, that type of performance. Marcos looked incredible. I mean, this guy has made so many improvements. Like if you go watch his fights a couple years ago and compare it to how he's looking, now on the Contender Series as well, this guy's making a ton of improvements with the striking. He shows some grappling, outside the UFC as well, can mix in takedowns. I really like Daniel Marcos, but this is going to be his toughest test to date against a very, very dangerous guy in Davey Grant, a guy in Davey Grant who's next level tough. I think these guys are going to stand and bang here. Should be a very fun fight here, Weezy. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking of a fight goes to decision here potentially because, Davey Grant's never been knocked out and Daniel Marcos has never submitted anybody. And we don't really know what Daniel Marcos's durability looks like because he's never even lost. So, but God damn, the tape on Daniel Marcos the last two fights is impressive.
Oh, yeah.
What he did to Brandon Lewis, man, he beat 7 shades of shit out of that kid. And then Simon Oliveira, he was just messing him up the entire time, landing 8.9 distance strikes per minute spent at distance, landing 3.95 more distance strikes per minute than Simon did. That great front kick that he's got that goes up the middle. I mean, if you try to walk this guy down, he's going to punt your head into the third row. Great hands, throws in combination, a little bit of power there. And he took a break, dude. We saw him fight Gaston Manzur over in that Sparta 303 promotion in Peru. And then he took a couple of years off. And then we see him on the Contender Series, and he looks phenomenal against a guy in Brandon Lewis who had actually been to the Contender Series before, lost to a really good name. I forget who he lost to the first time, but it's a good fighter that's still with the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. And Marcos just absolutely dominated him. He stopped all the takedowns that Simon shot on him. His striking looks phenomenal. He's 30 years old. He's on a 14-fight winning streak. What's not to like? You see all that green on the side with him on the striking numbers. They're absolutely phenomenal. But with dangerous Davey Grant, I mean, we know what we're getting here. This guy throws with reckless abandon. 4 UFC knockdowns, 3 UFC knockouts, and knockouts, Brady. When he lands hard. And there are guys that he's lost to, Marlon Vera in particular, where he's cracking them with shots. And if it wasn't Marlon Vera, that dude might have been sleeping too. So this is a huge step up in competition for a guy like Marcos. But Marcos is 7 years younger than this guy. And I don't think he's absolutely going to be out. I don't think he'll be out of his depth anywhere. But I think Grant might be smart to mix in the wrestling here a little bit. We don't see him do it much. He's getting 1.41 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's only attempted 28 takedowns in 11 fights, and that's mostly a thing of the past. That's the Davey Grant that came into the UFC 10 years ago. That's not today's Davey Grant. Today's Davey Grant goes out there and he stands in the pocket and he wings wide shots coming from Asia and coming from North America when he's in London, and he's looking to absolutely spin your chin 360 degrees around your face. So this is going to be a great fight. I think you're going to be really nail biting the over here, but I don't think either one of these guys is knocking out the other one unless Grant just lands nasty hard, and we just don't know what Marcos's chin looks like because it wasn't really tested against Brandon Lewis and Simon Oliveira, and who knows what it looks like, against a guy like David Grant. So great fight, but I think the plus money on Grant is a little bit interesting because we might have forgotten, how much better the brand of competition that Davey Grant has been in there against and how dangerous he is with his submissions as well.
Yeah, I mean, my concern would be like the durability of Marcos, because it could be good or it could be like we haven't seen it tested really at all. Um, Not at all in the Lewis fight, not at all in the Oliveira fight. But Davey Grant, this guy has like different power. Like he's putting guys out, so that would kind of concern me in a fight where I feel like they are going to stand and bang here. But I feel like Marcos can absolutely win minutes here. I think his striking's phenomenal. Love the volume. He's 7 years younger, but I guess the power of Grant would be the one thing that kind of scares me away. But yeah, Marcos looks like the favorite, currently minus 135. Davey Grant plus 115. Kind of interested to see where that line moves throughout the week.
Yeah, me too. Brady, do you remember the Grant Vera fight the second time that they fought? I think we both had Vera inside the distance.
Yeah, and it almost hit like 50 times, second and third round.
Davey Grant doesn't quit on anything, dude. I mean, like that guy was in so many deep chokes, even with like 10 seconds left in the third round. He was in a choke that I couldn't believe wasn't shutting off his blood flow to the brain. He will absolutely fight through a fire here. This is going to be a hell of a fight, too. This is great matchmaking. An old, well-tested lion against a guy who's just looked absolutely phenomenal so far. So I can't wait for this one. I'm going with Grant as my early pick, but I think Marcos is a great talent. I just want to see how he handles this step up in competition against a very well-tested guy on foreign soil in front of a hostile crowd.
Yep, absolutely. Phenomenal fight here. This one could potentially be even fight of the night. We'll move on. We have Lerone Murphy going against Josh Culibao. We have Murphy, 31 years old, 5'9", with a 73-inch reach. Culibao, 29 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. We have Culibao 2 years younger. Culibao with a 1-inch height advantage, same reach there. Murphy, he is 4-0 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Had a draw against Barata Hugov, a knockout win against Ricardo Ramos, decision win against Douglas Silva de Andrade, knockout win against Mac 1 Americani, and then a decision win against Gabriel Santos. As far as Josh Culibao, he made his debut, I believe, short notice up weight class against Jalen Turner, lost that fight by TKO, had a draw against Charles Jourdain, decision win against Shalion Nurdin-Beke, a decision win against Sungwoo Choi, and then a submission win against Melsik Bagdasarian. Yeah, should be a pretty fun matchup here. Another fight where I think they're going to stand and bang across 15. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so we saw Murphy really get lucky in his last fight against Gabriel Santos, winning that split decision. And I think it's important to note that Gabriel Santos took that fight on short notice, flew all the way from Brazil to the UK for that fight, made weight, all that stuff, and then just had a mind-blowing performance against Lerone Murphy. It's not like Murphy looked bad, but Gabriel Santos just gave him all that he could handle. I thought that Gabriel Santos won that fight pretty cleanly, and I bet Murphy and picked him as the ass shaving of the week. So, you know that I was rooting for Murphy there, but I thought Santos won that fight. Now, Culibao's on a 3-fight winning streak against 3 good names in Shailan, Sungwoo Choi, and Melsik Bagdasarian. He's looking very good, man. The grappling on this kid is really good, but he doesn't really get takedowns. But he's got a submission win in the UFC. He got that submission win against Melsik, and we know that he's good on the feet. You look at the distance striking numbers, he's not particularly high volume, but he's landing 3.84 at distance and only absorbing 3.05. Really good, 65.74% distance striking defense. And he's landed 3 knockdowns in 5 fights. So the power is there. The kicks are there. But with Lerone Murphy, you got a really good guy here too. He hasn't been very active as a pro, but he's 4-0-1 in the UFC. Really close fight against Zubaira Tukhugov, knocked out Ramos, won a unanimous decision against Douglas Silva de Andrade, and that fight really wasn't even close. And then he knocked out Mac 1 Americani. And then he had a war against Gabriel Santos, a guy that he wasn't training for. These are 2 high-level guys. Lerone Murphy's never lost in the UFC, and Josh Culibao has never lost as a featherweight. He's only lost once as a lightweight, and it was against Jalen Turner on short notice. So I think that this is going to be a very close fight. I'm very high on Culibao. I think that these guys are very well matched. So I think it's interesting to look where the line is right now, because we've got Lerone Murphy as a minus 140 favorite, minus 155 on Bovada right now. I think a plus money shot on Culibao might be worth it this week, but I still have to tape this fight. This is one of the 3 fights that I have not taped yet. So really looking forward to taping this one and getting a better read. But I think the plus money on Culibao is probably the side that I would gravitate towards here.
Yeah, Culibao always seems to like surprise everybody, like every single fight. Even in the Charles Jourdain fight, he was like a massive underdog in that fight. Ended up, becoming a draw. I think he was a dog in the Choi fight as well, like a decent sized one. And he went out there and got the dub. So yeah, I think Culibao is very, very underrated. I think if people are finally starting to see how good this guy is. But yeah, he's a dog here around +1. What is it? +120, +130. I think it is probably a dog or pass, close type fight. So don't hate it.
Very close fight. Very talented guys there. It's a great matchmaking. And I think that, whoever the plus money side is probably the way to go.
Yep. Agree. All right. Let's move on to the next fight. We got Jai Herbert going against Farès Ziam. We got Jai Herbert, 35 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. Ziam, he is 26 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. We got Ziam, 9 years younger, same height, and then it's going to be Herbert with a 2-inch reach advantage. Jai Herbert, he is 2-2-1 draw. He had the draw against am I thinking of someone else? Jai
Herbert, Ludovic Klein. He had a draw against
Yeah, that's right. And then as far as Ziam, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision loss to Don Madge, a decision win against Jamie Malarkey, a decision win against Luigi Vendramini, a submission loss against Terrence McKinney, and then a decision win against Mikkel Figlak. Ziam looked really good in his last fight against Figlak. I think he was the dog there. That's the best version we've ever seen of him. He ended up going out there, even mixing some takedowns, which was nice to see as well, and I think he could potentially even do that in this matchup. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
I am really liking Farès Ziam in this spot, and the line is getting absolutely steamed. I am not on an island here. Basically, Ziam was about plus 100 yesterday during the fights. Now he's about minus 135 everywhere, and the steam is just going to continue. If you watch this kid's last performance against Mikkel Figlak, it's a completely different fighter. He's training at Kill Cliff FC. This kid already had a phenomenal kickboxing pedigree that he came into his professional mixed martial arts career with, and then he was winning fights early with that kickboxing. But now you kind of saw the grappling take the next step in the Figlak fight. He's getting takedowns. He's getting top control. And the grappling, like he was put in a couple of bad spots, but immediately got out of them. And the striking is just so technical, Brady. I mean, you want to learn how to throw a jab, watch Farès Ziam throw a jab. I mean, every single time that thing goes out, comes right back to his chin, and he's so defensively responsible. And you look at, dude, this kid's been in the UFC 5 fights, 62 minutes in the cage, Brady. 28 of those minutes at distance striking range. This kid's distance striking defense is 71%. He's so technical. He's so crisp. He's so fast. He just he hasn't flashed the power yet. But I am saying yet, because I think he's knocking out Jai Herbert here. I mean, I don't think that this fight is even going to be close. I think Farès Ziam is going to absolutely steamroll this dude. He's still only 26 years old. He's been at Kill Cliff FC now for a minute. And we saw he took time off after that Terrence McKinney fight. And he came back a completely different fighter there against Figlak. And yeah, he's fighting Jai Herbert in his home country, but Farès is from France, so it's not like he's going to be out of his depth being in Europe. He's from there. And I really like the steps that this kid is taking. Also, it's very important to note, Brady, Jai Herbert's 35 years old. Farès Ziam is 26 years old. These guys are at 2 completely different points in their career. I'm going to be taking a long look at Farès Ziam by knockout in this fight because he hasn't knocked anyone out in the UFC yet, and because we've seen Jai Herbert be really chinny. He gets touched and he gets hurt, and I I think that Ziam would have knocked out Jay Herbert with some of the shots that he was landing on Figlak. I'm all over Farès Ziam this week.
I like it. Yeah, I'm picking him as well. Don't have nearly the conviction, though, but I would have liked him at plus money, minus 135. I'm going to pass on that. You do like the under, though, which is sitting at plus 165, right?
Yeah. I like it because I think Farès can finish him, but you can't forget the fact that Jay Herbert has real power in his hands. He's a slick kickboxer. He keeps people on the end of his punches, and he drops dudes on the regular. Jay Herbert's got 3 UFC knockdowns in 6 fights and 60 minutes in the UFC cage. So Jay absolutely has real power in his own right. But I'm really stoked about what Farès Ziam can have from us going forward. Don't forget, this guy made his UFC debut against Don Madge when he was like 22 or 23 years old. Don Madge never lost in the UFC. He was 3-0 in the UFC. So yeah, this kid's really at a different point in his career right now than Herbert, and I really liked what I saw from him last time. I'm gonna be parlaying Ziam in the greasy 4-legger this week. And I'm going to be looking at Ziam by knockout, hopefully at a big plus money number.
There you go. Yeah, I'm probably going to stay away from this one. I'm not high on either guy, but I will say Ziam did look much, much better his last fight. And by the way, we got Sodiq Yusuff, Super Sodiq Yusuff in the building. Not sure if it's the real guy, but that'd be cool if it was.
That really would be cool if it was, because even with all these numbers and this amazing statistical work that we do here on Stat Diggers, Brady, it's nothing compared to the unprofessional breakdowns that Sodiq Yusuff gives us every week. There is some serious technical analysis in his work, and I take my hat off to him, even though I'm not wearing one right now.
There really is. I am wearing one as well, but I would take off my hat, but I don't want to show everybody my Dudakova hairstyle right now. Probably all types of fucked up right now, especially after wearing this hat. I had a rough night last night, so
hey man, we're here doing the work though.
Yeah.
Rough night, good night, whatever happens, man. We're right here on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday for Stat Diggers, and that is the real Sodiq Yusuff. Shout out to that man. I'm really looking forward to. He's been hurt, I know, for a minute now, so I'm looking forward to seeing him return from that injury and get back in the cage.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Couple more fights left. We have a weird fight here. Paul Craig going against André Muniz. We got Paul Craig, who is 35 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. Muniz, 33 years old, 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. We got Muniz 2 years younger. Paul Craig with a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Paul Craig is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Shogun, a knockout win against Jamal Hill, a submission win against Nikita Krylov, a decision loss against Volkan Oezdemir, and then a knockout loss against Johnny Walker. As far as Muniz, he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Submission wins against Fabinski, Souza, Anders, a decision loss against Uriah Hall, then decision win against Uriah Hall, my bad, and then a submission loss against Brendan Allen in the 3rd round. So this fight's, I don't know, it's a kind of a tricky one to break down because I can see this fight playing out in like a million different ways, that's typically how a Paul Craig fight is, right? Like it can go so many different ways there, but I guess it'd be much easier if I knew what path, André Muniz was going to take. Because in his last fight, André Muniz fought that he was like he forgot that he was a incredible 3rd-degree black belt and decided to test his striking against Brendan Allen, and that did not work out at all. And I would like to see him go back to the grappling here. I think he can take down Paul Craig literally at will. Paul Craig has no takedown defense. And I just feel like Muniz, although Paul Craig is a very dangerous grappler, I feel like Muniz is just a much better grappler. And it's really not even close. What I'm worried about in this fight is if Muniz decides to go out here and, test his striking, which I still think he could win, that type of fight. It's just, if that type of fight happens, we could be looking at like the worst fight on the card. If these two are striking for 15 minutes, this fight could look awful. So I'm hoping Muniz goes back to his roots, grapples here, and taps out Paul Craig. But I just don't know how he's going to attack this fight. The Brendan Allen fight last time just really caught me off guard because why wouldn't he grapple against Brendan Allen? Why would he strike with the guy? I don't know. So weird fight for me, Weezy. You don't really know what to think of it. How do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, there's nothing more infuriating, Brady. Nothing more infuriating than a top-notch grappler falling in love with his hands. I mean, we saw it happen to Damian Maia for a couple of fights. We've seen it happen to Curtis Blades recently. Who else? Oh, didn't Renato Moicano fall in love with the box as well? I mean, we've seen it over and over again. And what happens every damn time that a grappler falls in love with his hands, right? It goes tits up. Okay, every damn time. It never works out. So André Muniz, this is the get right spot. Paul Craig's moving down to 185 pounds. He's been fighting at 205 his entire UFC career. So this is odd to me. Paul Craig's 35 years old. Not usually the age we start seeing people make, cut down to lower weight classes. And it's a 20-pound cut, too. And, I mean, it's not like Paul Craig looked like he had a lot of weight to lose. So I don't know about this weight cut. I think Muniz will be the much better striker on the feet. He showed some flashes against Brendan Allen. Obviously, in terms of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pedigree, in the sport, BJJ, it's Muniz all day, but Paul Craig's MMA grappling is phenomenal. And he's got 13 wins by submission in his 23-fight career. But André Muniz has got 15 wins by submission in his 28-fight career. Muniz has been subbed once. Paul Craig's been subbed once, but these guys have been knocked out a ton. 4 times for Muniz, 3 times for Craig. I bet the under 1.5 rounds in this fight at plus 135. Both of these guys are finishers, and if Muniz does grapple, he's going to have to deal with that guard of Paul Craig, which is very good, but I think Muniz probably gets to his back and chokes him out. There are levels to this grappling thing, and Muniz is the guy that's got the pedigree. Muniz is the guy that's, kind of made it look easy against guys like Eric Anders. He went through Anders so fast it was ridiculous. He's breaking, Jacare's arm. Fabinski, who's a guy that has to grapple in order to succeed. He made that look so easy. And then he kind of struck with Uriah Hall, didn't really grapple him much and won that unanimous decision. And then a bizarre performance against Brendan Allen where he didn't grapple. I think Muniz wins this fight 8 out of 10 times. I really do. I'm not exactly sure where Paul Craig's better than him. And Muniz is still the younger guy, and he's actually the more experienced guy as well. It's just that Craig's had higher level competition, but big red flag, in my opinion, with Paul Craig dropping down to 185 here. I think he'd be better off at 205. But we'll see how this goes. I'm picking Muniz first or second round submission.
Yep. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably going to stay away from this fight. I have just a weird feeling about it. Muniz, his line's getting steamed as we speak, is now minus 223. Paul Craig plus 188. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Paul Craig love this week. He's a fan favorite. The under moved as well. So there you go, Weezy. You got some CLV. It went from plus 135 to plus 110. At plus 135, I was intrigued. Now I'm just going to pass because I have a weird feeling about it anyway. But I think this fight does finish more than likely, but I don't know. If Muniz goes out there and strikes with Paul Craig, I'll be like smashing my team with the baseball bat because they could look so ugly. I mean, both guys are not. I mean, Muniz's striking looks better, but I don't know.
But don't forget, dude, Paul Craig's been knocked out 3 times. I mean, Muniz might knock him out.
I don't know. I mean, Muniz really.
I hope he does because I got the under 1.5. So don't shit in my apple pie. Just be like, yeah, Weezy's gonna sleep him. Come on, help me out here, man.
Yeah, I mean, he could. But Craig got knocked out by Johnny Walker. Menefield knocked him out. Some hard hitters.
Somebody named Jamal Hill.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, maybe Paul Craig is coming down a weight class. Maybe he's so chinny that Muniz. I think it's a sub though. I think Muniz should sub this guy. Let's see.
Yeah, he should. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you look at the wins that Paul Craig has, and you're like, wait, what? Jamal Hill, Magomed Ankalaev, you're like, Krylov, he's beating some, he beat Shogun Hua, who obviously was washed up when he beat him, but still, I mean, that's one of the legends of the sport. And then you're like, yeah, you got decisioned by Volkan Ozdemir. You got slept by Walker in the first. He's like Paul Craig is Scottish for variance.
I know his fights are always so wild, but it should be entertaining, I suppose. Let's keep moving on to the next fight. We have Nathaniel Wood going against André Fili. We got Nathaniel Wood, 30 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. Fili, 33 years old, 5'11" with a 74-inch reach. Wood, 3 years younger. Fili with a 5-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage there. Nathaniel Wood is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout loss to John Dotson, a decision win against John Castaneda, decision loss against Casey Kenny, decision win against Charles Rosa and Charles Jourdain. As far as André Fili, he is 2-1 no contest in his last 5 fights, decision win against Charles Jourdain, decision loss to Bryce Mitchell, no contest against Daniel Pineda, knockout loss against Joe Anderson Brito, and then a decision win against Bill Algeo. Weezy, how do you feel about this fight?
Man, I mean, like, Wood's a pretty big favorite here, you know? And it's like, y'all must have forgot about Fili. Fili can fight, man. Fili's good, dude. Fili's 5 inches taller, has a 5-inch reach advantage, 8 more pro fights, 2 more years as a pro, 115 more minutes in the pro cage, 11 more UFC fights, about 110 more minutes in the UFC octagon, and he's the true featherweight, while Nathaniel Wood has fought most of his career at bantamweight and has now had, I believe, 2 fights at featherweight against Charles Rosa and Charles Jourdain. Wood is a great striker. The numbers really bear it out. 46% distance striking accuracy is solid. Really good 60% distance striking defense, a positive 2.26 distance striking differential. And he wins minutes in the grappling exchanges. He's got as many takedown attempts as his opponents do, but he's out-controlling his opponents 18% to 7%, winning over 72% of the control time positions that he's been in. But here's where Fili's better. Strength of schedule, experience, size. I mean, those are really important things. And then not only that, Fili does a fantastic job of mixing in the wrestling. He's 49% on his takedown attempts, and he's got 70% takedown defense in his own right. He's real sneaky at mixing in those takedowns and using that to win minutes, and then using that threat of the ongoing wrestling in order to land strikes that might not have landed had he not mixed in the takedowns. You look at the career combined records of André Fili's opponents, 121 wins and 91 losses. Nathaniel Wood is fighting guys with a combined record of 40 and 39 at the UFC level. So Fili's fighting the more experienced guys. Dude, how the fuck am I supposed to do my job and break down this fight when you're putting Kim Winslow stuff on the goddamn?
I mean, I think it's relevant because I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, where is Kim Winslow? Can we find that? Yes, there it is. There.
I gotta get this framed. I'm gonna put it.
Kim Winslow is ruining people's lives.
She is. I don't think we've talked about Kim Winslow much on this show. It's more so the DraftKings show. But I'm just trying to figure out where she's at.
I want to know too, man. I want to know too. But look, man, Fili's wins are better. He's more experienced. I think he might be the guy more likely to win minutes with the wrestling here. And I think it's going to be close on the feet, but that 5-inch reach advantage and the good kicking attack of Fili, I think, is going to be good for him to manage range here. I think the plus money on Fili, and I think you're getting around plus 155, plus 160, is very intriguing.
Yeah, Wood opened up, believe it or not, minus 325, and then he's currently at minus 185, and Fili opened up plus 275, currently plus 160. So that's a wild opener. We've seen some wild openers lately, but that's definitely wild. There's like a wild one last week. I forget which one it was, but yeah, Wood opened up a massive favorite there.
Yeah, dude, he's got a lot to prove. Nathaniel Wood to me. He's got a lot to prove, man. A win over Charles Rosa means jack shit to me at this point, right? And the Jourdain win is a good win, but Fili's beaten Jourdain as well. But Fili's also been out there against, some of the top guys in the featherweight division. You know, I mean, he gets knocked out by Joe Anderson Brito. I don't care about that. Joe Anderson Brito's a murderer. And he was absolutely kicking the shit out of Daniel Pineda before he poked him in the eye. I mean, this guy should be 3-2 in his last 5 with 2 losses coming to a phenomenal grappler in Bryce Mitchell, which is nothing like the Wood fight, and against a guy with one-punch knockout power in Joe Anderson Brito, which Nathaniel Wood does not have. Nathaniel Wood has landed 1 knockdown in 8 UFC fights, and he's never knocked anybody out at the UFC level. So I kind of like Fili here. I think I think people are disrespecting André Fili with this number.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be disrespecting Rosa. You know, Sadiq's not too happy about it.
Dude, he's bad, man. Charles Rose has been absolutely awful lately. Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, dude. And I mean, if anybody knows about André Fili, it's one Sadiq Youssef. I mean, like, if that's Sadiq Youssef in there, you tell me, Sadiq, who do you like? You fought Fili. You know what the dude's all about, and you know what Nathaniel Wood has done in this division so far. So if that's you, Sadiq, I'd like to know who you got in this spot, because you've been in the cage with Fili and you beat him.
Heck yeah. And he respects the double down. There you go.
There we go.
We got Jesus in the chat liking the Wood side. All right. So nobody can tell me where Kim Winslow's at. I'm going to make a poster because I'm just trying to figure out where she's at this point.
Yeah. Dude, have you seen this woman? And put the heart picture. Put it on Twitter. Put it on Twitter now. I'll break down the next fight. What do we got?
All right. I mean, the last time we saw her, she was in that mermaid. Remember that mermaid outfit? That was just terrifying. Do you remember that?
That's one of those pictures that we probably would get demonetized if we showed that.
I don't know. I mean, it was. Can I pull it up?
I don't know, man. I mean, like, we could actually get Pub Sports Radio completely taken off of YouTube if we show that picture. It's just that disturbing. I think we might go from over 200 live viewers down to like 13.
Oh, I mean, I had to see it, so I think everybody else should. So the caption, believe it or not, says, "Sorry, you guys have to see this weird Kim Winslow pictures." Here it is. Sorry, you guys had to see this. There it is, towards the right. She's in a mermaid outfit. Not sure what's.
And if you see the picture of Miesha Tate there, that's where Miesha Tate's saying that Kim Winslow is ruining people's lives.
There it is. Blast referee Kim Winslow. Miesha Tate does. And then there's that.
Well, we just got demonetized. There it is. There it is.
We're fired. We don't have a. Sorry, we're going to have to move the shows to a different platform.
We'll do stat diggers for food, ladies and gentlemen.
What a terrifying picture. I'm sorry, everybody that had to see that. I think we should. Move on. And let me take off this banner while we're at it. Enough of that. We're going to have nightmares tonight. All right. So next we have the co-main event. Yes, you heard that right. Molly McCann in a co-main event going against Julija Stoliarenko. We have Molly McCann, 33 years old, 5'4", with a 62-inch reach. Stoliarenko, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 66-inch reach. We got Stoliarenko 3 years younger, 3-inch height advantage, and a 4-inch reach advantage. Molly McCann is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, a decision loss to Laura Procopio, a decision win against Jiyeon Kim, knockout win against Luana Carolina, knockout win against Hannah Goldie, then submission loss against Erin Blanchfield. As far as Stoliarenko, she is 1-4 in her last 5 fights, decision loss against Kunitskaya, submission loss to Julia Avila, a decision loss against Alexis Davis, a submission win against Jessica Rose Clark, and then a knockout loss against Chelsea Chandler. And yeah, Molly McCann is a massive favorite, but believe it or not, money's pouring in on Julija Stoliarenko. I think it has a lot more to do with Molly McCann should not be minus 300 or 400 against anybody. But I don't think Stoliarenko is that great. I think her striking's very bad. I think her striking defense is non-existent. Really, I think her wrestling's non-existent. I think a lot of things are non-existent with Stoliarenko, but she does one thing very, very well, and that's, 1, get beat up a lot, and then 2, that arm bar. I mean, she has like so many arm bar wins on her record. I think she has 10 wins, like 9 of them are arm bars. So Yeah, I mean, Molly McCann has to mind her P's and Q's if this fight gets down to the mat, but on the feet, it's really not even that close. So although I'm not laying minus 250 on Molly McCann, it should be an easy fight for her. But Stoliarenko's super dangerous here. If I'm betting Stoliarenko, I'm betting her by sub because she's not knocking out anybody. She's not winning a decision because she's a horrible minute winner. If Stoliarenko wins this fight, it's an armbar and probably from guard. So give me Molly McCann to beat the crap out of Stoliarenko, probably finish her. Like this under's juiced, which it's weird to see a Molly McCann under juiced, but there's a good reason for it. Give me Molly McCann to finish Stoliarenko at some point, but don't want to completely count out Stoliarenko because she is super dangerous.
Yeah, and she's super tough too. She's really a durable woman, but you just don't want to fight Molly McCann in England. It's really bad for your health. You might like wind up beheaded and like have your head on a pike and it'll just get passed around the British crowd. And while we're doing shoeies here in America, they're drinking beer out of severed heads. Those people are animals when their fighters get in the cage. And like we've seen Molly McCann just get completely amped up by being in front of that home crowd. And Julia Stoliarenko is 1-5 in the UFC. So yeah, it's really not hard to picture Molly Methball, as our guy Mushroom calls her right here, going out there looking like she's on cocaine or crystal meth and absolutely just destroying Julia Stoliarenko from pillar to post in a similar fashion that Chelsea Chandler did in Julia's last fight, and we just saw Chelsea in the meme of the year running flat out like from the bully in the schoolyard right into that fence. And it didn't even look like she knew the fence was going to be there. Like she was just running. It was just, instinct taking over. And I think instinct is going to take over for McCann. And she's going to look like a Tasmanian devil in there. And I'd say that Julia Stoliarenko is going to run into a dick saw here, but she doesn't have one of those. So it's going to be something else. But I think McCann destroys her. But don't get me wrong, Brady, I understand why the money's coming in on Stoliarenko. There's a path here. Her striking isn't awful, right? It's not 10%, bottom 10% of the division. But it's, Molly would absolutely mollywop her on the feet. But if this fight gets to the ground, Molly's not good there. Molly's got 45% takedown defense. Molly's been controlled by her opponents just a little bit under 30% of her UFC cage time. So if Julia can get the grappling going, if she can even just pull guard, and work to try to find that arm bar, things can get really sweaty if you've got that Molly McCann ticket. But I really do think that Molly wins this and probably wins it by knockout, and then the crowd just goes absolutely bonkers.
Especially if she's coked up, which she's going to be pumped up, man. I mean, we're in London, co-main event. Like she is going to be coked out of her mind, man. And that's I think she probably gets a knockout here. The under was something I had circled, but my goodness, let's see where it's at now. It's already moved even. So it opened up at minus 105 around there. It was sitting there for a while. It's now minus 134, which is it seems crazy, but I mean it probably hits. But I hate that price tag.
Yeah, the prop template actually likes the over because McCann's been over 2.5 rounds 6 out of 10 times, and Stoliarenko 4 out of 6. So 10 of 16 fights, or 62.5% of their combined UFC fights in a good 16-fight sample size, have been over 2.5 rounds, and we're only paying 49% on the line. So at plus 104, the over 2.5 is statistically a good bet. But Molly McCann in front of her home crowd, she's a very dangerous woman. So, and then not only that, you have to worry about a potential Stoliarenko submission as well, dude. So yeah, I could see why the under 2.5 is getting some steam here. It makes sense to me. Somebody's going to be dangerous wherever this fight goes.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Don't bet it. I probably won't, but I think it probably hits. Just the money line, I'm not laying minus 250 on Molly McCann. You can do that. It's just not my style there. But I mean, I think she wins. But just a thought of laying minus 250 on Molly McCann just makes my stomach hurt a little bit.
It's a little terrifying, though, but so is facing Molly McCann in England. I
Oh,
mean,
you're right. You're right.
could
Should
be
be
bad. Could be a
yeah.
bad day for Julia Stoliarenko, man.
Yeah, she's not great. All right.
Oh, we also have to mention, Brady, she's cutting to 125 pounds here.
Well, she's
to
gonna
fight
miss
Molly
weight.
McCann.
She's gonna miss weight.
Yeah, I mean, like we've seen her pass out at 137, like missing weight at trying to make 136. So the fact that Julia is cutting down to 125 is kind of bizarre. I think that because of that, there's a good chance that that fight might not even take place.
Yeah, I could see it. All right, so yeah, I might look at some props later in the week. Stoliarenko by sub. If you like Stoliarenko, I think that's the best look. Molly McCann inside the distance might be something to look at as well. But yeah, should be an interesting co-main event. All right, let's move on to this main event then. Before we do so, if you guys have not, smash the like button. We are 215 of you hanging out with us. Appreciate all of you. We're about an hour 50 in. Going to try to break down this main event in 10 minutes, get the show done in 2 hours, which is very good timing for a 15-fight card. But we have Tom Aspinall going against Marcin Tybura. We got Aspinall, 30 years old, 6'5" with a 78-inch reach. Tybura, 37 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Aspinall is 7 years younger, 2-inch height advantage, same reach there. Aspinall is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Alain Badeau, submission win against André Arlovsky, a knockout win against the Vampire, a submission win against Alexander Volkanovski, and then a injury against Curtis Blades his last time out. Unfortunate. But I did have like a huge bet on like the fight doesn't go to decision or something like that. But didn't really get to see the fight play out at all, which sucks because I really wanted to see that fight play out. Maybe we'll get to see it again in the future though. Marcin Tybura, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Greg Hardy, a knockout win against Walt Harris, a decision loss against Alexander Volkov, a decision win against Alexander Romanov, and then a decision win against Blagoy Ivanov. So Aspinall's coming back off of a little bit of a layoff. He had that injury. But yeah, if everything goes good, Aspinall comes back looking like the Aspinall of old. I think we get ourselves a quick main event here within the first 5 minutes. I just don't think Tybura has anything for Aspinall here on the feet. And you take a look at Marcin Tybura. There's been a lot of fights in the UFC where he's like getting starched early, like getting knocked out early by some of these guys. Like we saw Augusto Sakai, of all people, knock him out in less than 60 seconds. We've seen Shamil Abdurakhimov knocked him out, believe it or not, a couple of years ago, back in 2019. Derek Lewis knocked him out. And then we see a lot of times where he's getting beat up bad in the first round. Like Greg Hardy was putting it on him in the first round. Walt Harris was putting it on him in the first round. And then these guys, start to gas out, and that's kind of when Tybura starts to take over. I just don't see that with Aspinall. I think if Aspinall hurts Tybura, he's not going to let up, and he's probably just going to finish in there. If this fight does get extended, though, I mean, there are some question marks about Tom Aspinall. We've never seen him in the 4th round, in the 5th round, but, quite frankly, if this fight got to the 4th or 5th round, I'd be pretty surprised here. So I like Aspinall to finish this fight, finish it early. He's a massive favorite, minus 425 here, but I think it's probably warranted. I think he starches Marcin Tybura. But if this fight gets extended, it could get interesting. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this main event?
Yeah, it's so I think that there are some reasons to like Tybura here. Number one, Aspinall coming off of a serious knee reconstruction here. The layoff is about 1 year. So this is going to be the first time he's going to be testing that reconstructed knee in the cage. Is 1 year enough? Yeah, I would say so. Usually about 6 to 8 months to come back from a torn ACL, and now he's gotten to train. This fight's been made for a while. He's in front of his home crowd. If Tom Aspinall comes out with a really healthy knee and is 100% and ready to go, yeah, I think he just destroys Tybura. But there's a couple things that we don't know. For instance, Tom Aspinall has got 6 UFC fights, but that has lasted 15 minutes. His entire pro career has lasted 42 minutes. Tom Aspinall has never been taken down in the UFC, so we don't really know what he looks like off of his back. Guess what? Dude, Tybura's hell unleashed on top. If Tybura gets on top of Aspinall, Tom's going to be in big trouble because Tybura's grappling is absolutely legit. And you look at those last 4 opponents, for Tybura, solid guys in Walt Harris Alexander Volkov, Alexander Romanov, and then Blagoy Ivanov. Aspinall has been tested. He did great win over Volkov. The win over Spivak wasn't really impressive for me because Spivak took that fight on less than a week's notice and had to fly to the United States, and his wife had just had a baby. So I'd really like to see that Aspinall-Spivak rematch where both of them are on a full camp. If Tybura does come back and he looks good, I think that there are paths here for him, but we're missing a little bit of information on Aspinall. And right now, Brady, the line on Aspinall is minus 440. So I would love to get him, Aspinall round 1, or Aspinall same game parlay under 1.5 rounds, some shit, hopefully close to plus money, something like that. I think that would be the way that I would play, Tom. But I don't think you lay minus 440, A, in a heavyweight fight, B, where Aspinall's on a 1-year layoff and coming off of a knee reconstruction, C, where we really don't know what Tom Aspinall looks like off of his back because he's been controlled less than 1/8 of 1% of his UFC career. So we don't really know what the guy looks like on the ground, especially if he's underneath a guy like Tybura, who's got amazing ground and pound and can finish fights when he gets on top of dudes. Look at the strength of schedule. Tybura's got really good strength of schedule numbers here. And he's fought more fights, 17 UFC fights compared to 6 for Tom. But Tom's hands are ridiculous, Brady. They're so fast. His boxing is so good that while this fight is on the feet, I just don't see Tybura really even having a chance. But we're just going to have to see how the knee looks. We're going to have to see what he looks like after the year layoff, how bouncy he is, how athletic he is out there. But this should be Tom Aspinall. But you just got to be real careful about how you play this because we don't know what his conditioning looks like. We don't know what he looks like on the bottom. And we got less than 15 minutes of UFC cage time to judge this guy on. So tread lightly at minus 440 here. And I don't hate anybody taking a small shot on Tybura here.
Yeah, you really don't want to lay minus 440 really on anybody in the UFC, but I think you start just Tybura makes it look pretty easy, but minus 450, I see minus 500, I see a minus 714 Weezy out there right now.
Yeah, man, that's wide. It's wide, but like this guy Aspinall, he's incredible. He's incredible. Other than the Blades fight where he tore his knee up, he has just absolutely 10-8'd everybody that he's fought. It's not even close. So really looking forward. I'm so happy he's back because this is one of the great heavyweight talents that the UFC has on their roster right now.
Yep, agreed. Under 1.5. Open plus 115 would have loved that. Minus 145, I even think that's probably playable. 7.5 minutes. Tom hasn't been over 1.5 yet in the UFC, has he?
No, dude. His entire UFC career is 15 minutes.
Yeah. So under 1.5, although chalky, I think it's a solid look. Like the McKenny fight last week, it was chalky, but rightfully so. It's got to be a McKenny fight. This is an Aspinall fight. I think the under is solid there. But yeah, Weezy, we did it. 15 fights, kind of flew through it. 2 hours in, perfect timing. You're doing content this week. You're back. You did a ton of work on the week off. Looking forward to seeing all that. Weezy, let the people know where they can find you and your plans for this week for some content.
Yeah, going to be doing all the usual content this week. You can check me out on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. I'll be doing Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy, 10 o'clock Tuesday night Central Time. I'll break down all 15 of these fights, give you the stats on them, give you all my track bets, finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And we're going to try to find out where the fuck Kim Winslow is because this is news that the MMA community needs, and you look to us to get that news. You can find me right here on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday for Stat Diggers, every Wednesday for the DFS show, and every Saturday for the Watch Along with Boston Nick and the boys. And you can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel doing Probability. And we're going to be having some new content coming out for the Probability show, Brady. I spent this week off, which really wasn't a week off for me, building a new product that takes advantage of all the statistics that I have in my database to give us a lot of really useful metrics on underdog and prize picks plays. So keep an eye out for that content coming out in the future. Let's all stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC London. I'm going to really enjoy these fights, and you know that we'll enjoy them a lot more if we're cashing tickets and making money.
Absolutely. Great 15-fight card here. And then next week we have 291. So we're ending July off with a bang. You guys can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. I'm going to get out my full card prediction video potentially tomorrow, but if not tomorrow, then Tuesday. But yeah, guys, that is about it. Be sure to smash the like button on your way out. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time to give a very early look into the upcoming card. And last but not least, good luck, everybody. And let's see if we can find Kim Winslow. But maybe by the time we get back next week, Weezy, we'll find out where she's at and if she's okay.
Let's hope that she's okay. If not, we're going to have to call our cop friends, get an APB out, and figure out what the hell's going on.
Sounds good. All right. Good luck, everybody. See you.